Lace 'em up, let's start the show. We're digging in with Tripp. 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 We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah.
Well, welcome to another edition of Digging In. I'm at the Dig In studio, but only going to be here for a minute because going to jump on the Autobahn and slide right on down to as cool of a man cave as you will ever see. Justin Williams and his wife Kelly, their two kids, Jade, and our very top shelf Dig In correspondent Jax have been nice enough to host us along with their two dogs. So we're going to jump on that Autobahn and head to JW's house momentarily. Before we do, we want to thank our presenting sponsor who is, for a long time, loyally, unconditionally dug in with us, the New Country Auto Group. Dealerships in New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, slide right on down the eastern seaboard to Florida, where they just opened the nicest, most cutting-edge Ferrari dealership in North America. Elite automotive manufacturers from Lexus, BMW, Ferrari, Mercedes, Smart Car. If escape pods are your thing, newcountry.com. Also, as always, want to remind you to rate and review our show on all audio and YouTube platforms. Well, there's only one YouTube platform. For this particular episode, I really think you should lean towards checking it out on YouTube because the competitive fire in Justin Williams' facial expressions, they're in a league of their own. And you're only going to be able to truly appreciate that if you dig into this particular episode on the YouTube option. If you hear a few noises as Justin and I dig in, it's because the dogs certainly welcomed us with a very intimate feel. As a matter of fact, I thought there was going to be a time that they'd knock over the lighting set and microphones, but they found a way to get into the high traffic areas just like Justin did throughout his career. Please check out digintrip.com for our ever-expanding merchandise line, including zip hoodies like this. Our Dig In correspondent, Jax Williams, he pulls off a sensational pink hoodie. Digintrip.com. Without further ado, this is going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be a gas. It's going to be a memory. And how fun is this to roll off the tongue? Just named special advisor to Hurricanes president and general manager Don Waddell, Justin Williams, his first significant step post-playing career, and what a career it was. We're going to cover that and virtually all things monumental dating back to his Cobourg, Ontario youth. Let's get on the Autobahn. Next stop, Digging In with JW. Well, repeat guest, and you know I start every show, JW, by asking for your definition of digging in with this incredibly exciting news, partner, that you are officially an advisor for the Carolina Hurricanes. Boy, it's terrific, that rolling off my tongue. As you're getting going in the first inning of this, how would you define digging in as an executive?
Well, digging in for me is just digging into this whole executive management role, learning as much as I can, and I'll be digging in as far as I can, and if I enjoy it, I'll keep digging and see if I want to continue to do this. But as for right now, it's just a lot of learning for me.
You know, when I think about it, you know, we're close to, I'd have to look at the exact date. A Sunday I'll never forget when you came back and you scored in the shootout. And I remember us saying, you know, let them hear you in Cobourg, and talking to your mom and dad, and you beating Thomas Christ. I mean, that was the script. If you had to tell me what the big bullet points were from, of course, the bubble was included, then until now, that made you think that this is something that you're interested in getting involved in, what would those bullet points or moments be?
Well, I think ever since I came back here, I've had a certain amount of, respect in the fact that the people seem to want my input on a few things, and slowly you get a little bit more, and people ask you a little bit more, just I guess from being around. And as the years kind of progress, and Tom Dundon bought the team. Tom and I have become pretty good friends, and he bounces a lot of ideas off me, and I in turn help him out too, because he really isn't a hockey guy before the last 3 years, but now he's fully ensconced in it, and he's done an unbelievable job of learning the game. So I guess the long-winded part of it is just it's slowly gotten there that it's become something that's kind of really interests me, and it's a puzzle that you're trying to piece together with getting the right people there, and it's interesting to do.
Ensconced, early word of the episode goes to JW. That's a good one. Guys that you played with that are entrenched or ensconced in their life contributions, staying in the game after hockey. If you had to pick 2 or 3 that you've talked to that have encouraged you to try this out, who would they be?
I mean, it's funny. The more you play, the longer you play, then the more your friends are becoming, GMs, coaches, scouts, everything. So a lot of the guys I played with and have retired over the past couple of years are slowly getting there. And I've reached out to Ron Francis, reached out to Jim Rutherford, guys who are Dean Lombardi, Mike Fuda, guys that I know, guys that are guys that I consider my friends, and it's you can't get enough information, right? I mean, that's what it is. Information is good, whether it be good, whether it be bad, whether it be indifferent. It's just good to have, and those guys giving me some pointers or something that's going to really help me.
3 of those 4 tremendous hockey contributors that you just mentioned are Ontario Hockey League guys. So perfect segue. Let's get back at it. I was talking to your mom and dad, who independently of you have become great friends of mine over the years, at least in my own mind. Justin, 13 years old. Okay, you had played for your dad. Your mom said, was your dad in the car too? You got cut from the team. Mm-hmm. And they said they were driving home, and they would have supported you if you didn't want to play hockey anymore. What do you remember about that car? Were both your parents in the car? How did you ever get cut? But more important, they were so happy to hear it was going to be your choice, but that you wanted to play hockey more than ever.
Oh, it's funny. I can actually, there's some parts of your childhood that you remember, some parts that you don't. But I can physically put myself back in that back seat, and I can remember that ride home. I guess just because I was so, distraught over it. Do I feel I should have made the team? Yes. But at the same time, it was, hitting was starting. I was a little bit on the smaller side. A lot of kids were a lot bigger than me. I'd hit puberty already. And, I was, a late bloomer. So, obviously one of the more slighter kids on the team. And I remember sitting in that back seat, and, my parents said, "Hey, we will find a place for you to play if you want to continue playing hockey. If you don't, that's fine. But we're committed to you. This could just be a roadblock, but let us know what you want to do." And, I wiped the tears from my face, and I said, "Yes, I still want to do it. I still want to try. I still want to play. And I want to give it a go." And they said, "Okay." And, we had to make a little bit longer drive, a sacrifice in the next couple of years, but everything seemed to work out all right.
You've always had maturity. I think I have the resume to say that, Willie, because I've known you for 20 years. So you've always been wiser and more mature beyond your years. I don't have the same resume. But when you were making the 90-minute drive to then play for Vaughan in the Metro Toronto Hockey League, each way, did you have the maturity to grasp, wow, this is a huge sacrifice my parents are making? And did that make you dig in even more as a young hockey player?
Well, I think as you slowly progress throughout the years, you slowly realize what your parents are doing for you. Because hockey, it's it's not an easy sport just to pick up, right? And it's not easy for parents just to say, yeah, go ahead and play hockey. It's not like they can go outside and grab a football or grab a soccer ball or grab a basketball and say, go play. I mean, you need arena time, you need equipment, everything's got to fit, you need to travel. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, right? So, yes, I slowly did. My parents were like, if, we're committing to this, and we weren't extremely well-off family. My parents worked hard and did what they had to do, but hockey was something that was a luxury, right? So, we do what we had to do. If I had to do my homework in the car, I had to do my homework in the car. We practiced twice a week and then played games on the weekends. So it was a lot on my parents driving me there, driving me back. A lot of time spent in the car with my dad. That's kind of where I let to learn a lot of his type of music, that's for sure. So, you develop relationships that way too. So I wouldn't change all that for anything.
Greg, what was his type of music?
Oh, ZZ Top.
Oh,
I could name all the ZZ Top and sing them all along. I could get those ZZ for sure.
Oh yeah, Legs. Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's here for those of you watching on YouTube. This beautiful basement that shows some of your playoff beards that ZZ Top would be very proud of. I'm going to bounce around here now. When you're coaching. My dig-in correspondent Jax and your daughter Jade, when a player doesn't make the team, I've heard that you make a point to say, hey, you build them back up. Is that something that you do based on that experience of being cut yourself?
Yeah, that's probably the worst part of making those types of personnel decisions, right? Whether it be a 12-year-old or whether it be a professional athlete, it's still going to be one of the worst things that you have to do. And, unfortunately for me, I had to do a little bit of it this year when I was coaching Jackson's team. And it's not ideal, but you have to be fair, right? And sometimes fairness isn't exactly what people want all the time. Yes, you need to work on some things, like you maybe come back next year and work on this and maybe things will be different. But I think being fair to somebody is the most important thing.
Yeah. And hey, listen, one of my favorite lines in the history of any great quotes, Mark Twain, you don't have to have a good memory when you tell the truth. Thane Campbell, I remember vividly, and I love the movie Jerry Maguire. As a matter of fact, Koopa Gooding, I remember having a couple with him. He had a couple when you guys won the cup here with the Hurricanes. He dug in with the crew that night. I believe, with one of your coaches, that connection was made, and he was a tremendous agent, and you were loyal to him throughout your entire career. Talk about the first time you met your Jerry Maguire.
Well, it's funny. I met my agent, Thane Campbell, when I was 15 years old, I bet. Probably around when I was 15. And oddly enough, he's also a lawyer. It's not odd, but oddly enough, he was representing my team in a lawsuit that someone else brought on the team, and he was conducting interviews, and he had to interview me for part of the process. And he came in and he was learning about me, and he watched a couple games, and that's kind of how our relationship started. So we started there. We always have a very closer relationship, just because of the fact that he's not a huge agent. He's got some guys. Brock McGinn being one of them on the Hurricanes, but. There's something to be said for a little bit more of getting a text after every game, and it's more of a friend than a business relationship.
Yeah, I should have known that Thane represented both you guys. So I remember being on the bus with you because we stayed in Washington after you set up Brock for the Game 7 winner. What was the first time that you and Brock both talked to Thane after that big W. 2 of his boys getting it done.
Yeah, I mean, we say set up, but listen, I wasn't much of a setup. I threw the bucket towards where I thought he would be.
I telestrated it. I tracked your eyes. You knew what was going to happen before it unfolded.
I saw someone going to the net, and he did all the work and knocked it out of the air. I mean, he made the memory himself. So obviously a very awesome moment for Brock, for myself, for Thane. To have both his players and the team create that memory for the Carolina Hurricanes, it was pretty awesome.
You know, I don't ever like to compare the special runs and special teams that I've been fortunate enough to be in Carolina for over 2 decades. I will tell you, was it because it had been so long without the playoffs, the drama of the series against Washington? Wow, was that special for me as your analyst? What will you remember when you think about that series? What's the moment, the fork in the road where it could have turned and you guys dug in and it turned ultimately in your favor?
That's a good question. I would probably say returning home to Raleigh, down 2-0, losing the first 2 games on the road in Washington, and knowing that you have to win 4 of the next 5 games to advance. That's daunting to do it against the previous Stanley Cup champs who've had so much success. So that's a task that seemed at the time that it was going to be really tough. But we came back, we won Game 3, and then a real statement in Game 4. And then we were for real after that, right? Playoff series it's interesting because you just got to win one game one at a time, and then pressure and momentum just swings quite a bit, and it's really funny how it works. But still to this day, I remember that series as being probably one of the top 3 or 4 series I've ever been a part of. It was incredible drama both ends, but one that could have gotten away from us early if we didn't bring it back in. And obviously in Game 7 too, being down 2-0 and having the resilience to come back one last time in that series.
Philadelphia, you've often talked about some tremendous veteran influences. Let me first ask you about Rick Tocchet. How did he dig in the most? And how did he most influence you?
Rick Tocchet to this day is one of my favorite guys. Obviously from the person he is to the player he was to what he did for me in teaching me how to be a pro, the game of hockey, and for an older guy at that time for him, I didn't pay for one thing that my first year. If I went with him anywhere, he was like, I got it, kid. I got it, kid. I got it, kid. And, in turn, you pay that forward, right? There's young guys on this team, and you kind of pay it forward. So we, showed me the ropes a little bit. And the fact that he had so much respect for the game and me, and the fact that he was really grooming me to take his spot, which is essentially what it was. I think he was 36 at the time, kind of on the tail end, last couple of years. And, I came in and, he did all that he could to make me comfortable, whereas opposed to, I'm not sure every guy would do that. So, to this day, Rick's a great friend of mine and, a guy I owe a lot to. Absolutely.
Yeah, I had the chance to sit next to him at Mark Recchi, your teammate's wedding. My gosh, his passion just screams off the page. And Rex always talked about the things he would go through to play. Do you remember any particular experiences watching what he did?
Well, the thing is, what's awesome, what I really, really respect is the guys who have the injuries but don't tell anybody, right? They don't have to let anyone know that they're hurting. They don't have to be like, and showing everybody, I'm sore this, I just got a needle here. I mean, when he wasn't feeling well, you knew it, but he would never tell you. He'd be like, how you feeling, Talk? Oh, I'm fine, and he'd go about his business. And, that's how I kind of, you take little bits and pieces of things from guys that you really respect throughout the years, and you try and make it your own. And, I try and do that as well. You're hurting? No, I'm totally fine. And in that way, you can kind of trick your mind to think you're fine too as well. So he played through a lot, absolutely, throughout his years. I mean, just the battle wounds and scars and the stuff that he went through throughout his career. It's well documented, and he played through a lot.
Absolutely love the guy. And I saw there was an embrace, because we don't see the Coyotes very often. I think it was last year, and he was coaching. He's doing an excellent job coaching there, and he happened to be walking by, and I saw the two of you. Just the embrace. You didn't need to say. That's what it's all about. One other guy I want to ask you about in Philadelphia, because you've spoken powerfully of your friendship and your admiration for him, Todd Fedoruk. When things that are bigger than hockey, addiction, digging in the most important facets of life. Tell me about why your relationship with Todd Fedoruk wasn't so strong, and what has impressed you most about him and his shovel?
Yeah, I mean, I just have total full respect for guys who do whatever the heck they need to do to either better themselves, to survive, to be a better person, whatever that may be. And his thing was a little bit of addiction, and he tackled it, and it's not easy to do at a young age, just breaking into the NHL. I mean, if there's ever not a time to do it, that's the time. And the strong mind that he had to be able to do it, it just speaks volume of the character and how powerful his mind is. So we had a lot of fun times together, a lot of great times, rookies together. And unfortunately for him, I probably provoked a few times where he had to fight for me and protect me out there. But he was an awesome guy, awesome teammate, and still a great friend.
Do you think strong character is something that you are born with, or something that you can hone and develop, or is it a combination of both?
Yeah, it's a combination of both. It has to do with your upbringing, definitely, and what you can take in. As a young kid, I mean, you're a product of your parents, essentially, and the values that they instill in you. And, you try and just push that along. And at the end of the day, it's all just be a good person, right? Just be a good person. I don't care what else you do. Just be a good person, be righteous, be, respectful, family. I mean, all that. So it all ensconces into one. And, that's what I'm trying to do with my kids too.
I was actually in Michigan during the COVID pause, and I was getting my mom something at Walgreens, and I was on the phone with your dad, and he shared with me, and I was talking to him about Jackson Jade, and he said to me the one thing that he always enforced, and he painted a great picture. You're at a face-off, whether you're the centerman or you're just lining up at that face-off, and you better look across at the other guy, and you better believe you are better than the other guy, and you want the puck more than the other guy, and you're going to do anything to get that puck more than the other guy. I know I ended up in the booth, JW, because I gave the other guy too much respect. I did. How do you, whether you're Jax or Jade or one of your Hurricanes is now being part of management, how do you convince yourself, truly, not fake it, convince yourself you're better than the other guy, and then you can do the rest of getting the puck?
Yeah, that's one that I'm not sure can be taught. That's inborn. That's kind of in there. It's a killer instinct. It's an attitude. It's a way of life that you're not going to be beat at anything, whether it be kickball, whether it be hockey, whether it be a race to the car down the street. Right? You want to win all the time, and that's just an attitude. And fortunately and unfortunately, sometimes for my kids, they both have it, and you got to hone that a little bit. You don't want to get rid of it, but you certainly don't want them to go the other way when they do lose, right? Nobody likes a poor sport. Nobody likes a poor loser, and you got to win and lose with grace, which is hard to do as a young kid.
I think it's hard to do a lot of times at any stage of your life. only magnified when you're a young kid. I'm thinking about Game 3 in Montreal because I remember it so vividly. And Cam Ward, the way that he played, you have that high stick with Koivu in the second period. Cam was brilliant. Rod wills a puck in the net. Do you remember anything? Because you always are observing your teammates. I remember Alex Nedeljkovic's first game in Vancouver. You never go down and tap the goalie, and you did. Before Cam played that game, do you remember anything in the locker room? Because you're always observing everything before the game itself.
I don't know. I know it was a make or break game for us. Going down 3-0 is not insurmountable, but it's pretty darn close. So I do remember after the second period looking around and people being like, nothing had to be said, but it was like, all right, somebody's got to make a play here. Who's going to be able to do it? And, fear not, Rod Brindamore comes in there and just kind of willed the puck in the net. I mean, there was nothing sexy, nothing about that play that screamed, wow, that was incredible. It was just he picked us up and said, let's go, and made that puck go in the net. And, we scored in overtime and kind of off we went, right? So, it's too bad your mom probably wasn't there early. We would have gotten some more wins a little bit earlier, giving her high fives on the way out to the game. But, again, just moments that you're bringing up right now that bring back a lot of memories, that spur a lot of memories in you. But that was one that you sat back and said, whoa, those the big guy stepping up at the right time.
Well, I think about going to the next series, and I know it ended up being a short series, but the New Jersey Devils had won 16 straight, 12 in the regular season, then they swept. They swept the Rangers, and that for me, that particular cup for you, was your defining moment that series because of the way that you got into Marty Brodeur's kitchen with your net front. You were a nuisance. You were devastatingly impactful for the Hurricanes against the Devils in that series. Did he ever say anything to you? Because you made the winningest goaltender of all time uncomfortable. Did he ever say anything to you during the whole series?
During the whole series?
Or in the line after?
No, not in the line after. I still don't think he's a very big fan of mine, but I have no idea. But I do remember that year, though. It's funny. I'll tell a story now because it's years ago. But Simon Gagne, a good friend of mine from Philly, and I went to his golf tournament every year. It was maybe the third year in a row I was going. He has a tournament in Quebec. And strangely enough, Marty Brodeur goes to that as well. He goes to that same golf tournament. And I remember texting or calling or talking to him, Gagne, months before the tournament or something like that. He says, Willie. I said, what? He said, what'd you do to Marty? I said, why? He said, he's not coming if you're coming to the golf tournament. and I just laughed it off, and I was just, oh my gosh! So it was a funny moment. He hadn't let it go yet, so I'm sure he has by now.
It was the crux of, I remember it so well, because he was on top of his game, and for him to be on top of his game, that's on the top of Mount Everest, and you rattled his cage. You sure did. Hey, listen, I've got my analyst hat on right now, and it was sensational. And that was anything but a 5-game series. That was a terrific, terrific series.
No, that was my job. My job was to sit in front of them on that power play and do my best. And if I accidentally or non-accidentally got pushed in, then I non-accidentally got pushed in. So that stuff happens all the time in the game of hockey. And, that was my job in that particular series.
People that when they really learn about you, and it's no surprise. I call Brett Heddick and Roy Hobbs the natural, but you got a lot of Roy Hobbs in you. And of course, you're fluent in French. Your French is excellent. Did you, whether it be with Brodeur, it sounds like no. Did you ever have any really good one-liners that you can remember throughout your career in French?
No chance.
No?
No chance. No one-liners in French that I can remember. Because I learned French in school, but didn't really, I learned it. So I kind of had a good basis for it. But then when I was in Philly my first few years, then I kind of wanted to talk with the guys in the dressing room a little bit. Be like, hey, I can talk too. Let me try. So we had a few French guys on the team, but as I moved along, I didn't continue it because I went to LA. We didn't have any French Canadian guys on our team, except for Gagne when he came for 1 year and won a Stanley Cup. But other than that, I kind of lost that a little bit. But funny enough, every time I go to Montreal, being on Carolina the past few years, there was no one that spoke French as well. So they asked me all the time if I'd be willing to do an interview in French. And at first, the first couple of years, I was like, no. And then I said, you know what, forget it. Why not? Let's give it a go. And I can talk and have a conversation, but when you can't find a word that you want to say, and you just start stuttering. I have just so much respect for the guys that come over from overseas, from Russia, from Europe, and can't speak the language and try to do interviews, because it is not easy staring at that camera and not being able to find the words that you want.
Los Angeles, you just mentioned it. So many different things I want to hit, but I want to hit the biggies. When you think about, everybody, of course, thinks about coming back against San Jose for both cups. Let's start with the first cup. If you had to think about one particular moment within a game, between games, the group, behind the scenes, that you could have gone the other way and you dug in, what would you think of?
That first Stanley Cup? Is that
the first one?
I don't think there's ever been, you might correct me if I'm wrong, or maybe your producer there.
The Admiral.
Correct me, the Admiral. But I don't think anybody's ever kind of done what we did that playoff run. We were up 3-0 in every single series we were at, so it's tough to find a point where you were like, okay, your backs are really against the wall here. Obviously, it's the playoffs. You're giving your best every night, but it's a little bit different when you're up 2-0 in a series as opposed to being down 2-0. So I think the thing for us is we always kept pushing forward. We kept pushing. We didn't let off the gas. We didn't give anyone a minute to say, all right, you know what, we're in this series. We kept our composure, kept our foot down, and we're a beneficiary of one of the best goaltending performances I've ever seen in the playoffs, and that was Jonathan Quick that year.
Yeah, I tell you, as a former goaltender, that's nowhere near his level, but I can think about all the things that I admire about Jonathan Quick when it comes to goaltending mechanics, the sheer entertainment that he brings to the position. But tell me about, as a 3-time Stanley Cup winner and a Conn Smythe winner, tell me about the person. What makes him special? What makes him a guy that, can dig deep?
I think just his competitiveness. First of all, in practice, if you score on him, you are making an elite shot. And if you score on him, he is not happy about it. This guy works his tail off at practice. First shot, rebound, third shot, whatever. He is working his tail off. And that, I'm a huge believer in you practice how you play. Huge believer in it. And obviously he is as well, because he takes it personal when a puck gets past him. But I think second of all, the personality. You have to have the right personality for it, right? You got to be able to let stuff just fall off your back. Outside influences, bad ones, let it fall off your back. Bad press, let it fall off your back. Bad goal, let it fall off your back. And he's a perfect guy for that. His attitude is like, oh, well, not too worried. Doesn't get too high, doesn't get too low. Doesn't say I'm the greatest, doesn't say I'm the worst. So he's just, the process is right in front of him, and he stays the course. And obviously you can't teach talent and the way he plays the game. I think you can speak for it more than I can, being a former goalie, but he has his own unique style, right? And he battles more than anyone I've seen out there.
He has the battle, but then when you really look at the film, live and look at the film, his core, his ability to elevate and make himself vertical, because he's not the biggest guy in desperation. I could go on and on.
Yeah, his legs are the size of this table. They're so thick.
Oh, yeah, like tree trunks from the redwood forest. Andrzej Kopitar, you mentioned, like you admire Europeans, he's Slovenian, that come over and, English is their second language. Tell me about Andrzej Kopitar and what makes him a master of the shovel.
Yeah, again, he seems like when I met him, and his English is so perfect if you ever talk to him, that I just assumed he'd been over here forever, and he was a Canadian, and that was that. And then, unfortunately on the West Coast, you don't get to see them play that much. Obviously, when you're East Coast, I mean, you're going to bed. And I'm watching maybe a first period here before I go to bed, and that's it. So you don't get to see them as much. So going over there and just them, first impressions were like, wow, he's a good player. He's a great player. And he just slowly evolved in one of the more dominant two-way players you've ever seen. And he's still doing it now. And we have a really good relationship. He was probably one of my best friends on that team for sure. Spent a lot of time together, golfed together, wives are friends. So that whole thing and having a guy like that, obviously you're friends with all your teammates, but there's some guys that have a little bit more special meaning to it, and guys that you'll continue to talk to when you're done playing hockey, and he's one of them.
When you became a captain, what would you say, other than just being yourself and all of your years of experience and success that prepared you for that responsibility, what would you say the parts of Andrzej, the parts of Rod, leaders in Philadelphia that you extracted to make part of you being the leader of the Hurricanes?
Yeah, I think it's important you have full leadership from not only your captain. You have to have everybody. You can lead from anywhere in the organization, basically, is what it is. It doesn't matter if you have a C on your jersey, if you're a first-year player. You can lead from anywhere. And the teams that we won with in LA, we could have had 8 guys that could have been the captain. Dustin Brown was our captain, but we had 8 guys that could have been the captain there. So leadership was huge. When someone's not pulling their weight, you pick them up and say, let's go, you're coming along for the ride. And, I guess to answer your question, throughout the years, I just, as I kind of alliterated to earlier, I took a piece of like everything. And you don't want to change who you are, right? You try and be yourself still. But you do have the C on your jersey. You have to do just a little bit more. But you can't change the way you present yourself, change the way you play, change the way you act. You got that letter on your jersey for a reason, and the reason is not for what you could be; it's for what you are.
Again, the privilege that I had, I can go back and think about when you first arrived in Carolina, and then how much I enjoyed as your analyst the long-standing chemistry that you and Rod had. Oh, what I like too is that you both were willing to take a chance, hold the puck at the offensive blue line. If you made a mistake, you came back and you didn't, go with safe as death. You were willing to try it again. So your chemistry with Rod, your friendship with Rod was very well documented. Was there a point that you can remember, having won a cup with Peter Laviolette, 2 with Darryl Sutter, where you said, wow, this guy's a damn good coach?
Yeah, to start on your conversation, Rod and I had a great relationship on the ice, absolutely. Off the ice as well, too. I'm not saying we don't, but on the ice, we had a really good chemistry. I played most of my shifts with him. I'd say 98% of my shifts when I played in Carolina with him. And, I remember this time where Chad LaRose was playing on our line once and for, a stretch of a period. And the puck was at the blue line and he dumped it in. There wasn't guys on him. There was maybe a potential to make a play, but probably the right play was dumping it in. And he dumped it in and came back to the bench, and Roddy was like, hey, that's a last resort. That's an absolute last resort. You don't dump the puck in unless you have to. And Chad looked at him and said, no, really? And he's like, yeah. So you try to make a play first, and then that's your last resort. It's not your first. And that was funny. And, the next time he got it, he held on to it a little bit. And Roddy's like, there you go. Say, let's hang on to the puck a little bit more. And, he was great in that way. And as he's progressed to become what he is today. People always ask me, how is it playing for a coach who was your teammate? And I said, it's pretty darn easy because, he was, I think, 10 years older than me when we played, and I looked up to him then. So why would anything change now that he's my coach? I still look up to him. He's just now my coach. He's not my teammate. So the transition was very, very easy for me and pretty seamless, and I think it kind of was for him too.
But do you remember one moment? Like, I had a long conversation last year with Barry Trotz, and Barry Trotz, he said that more than any other person, when the Caps finally won the Cup, the guy that got the most messages of gratitude, in his view, was you. And that you would tell him at times, Barry, we don't need you to deliver the message. It's going to come from the leadership in the room. So as a veteran player, was there one particular coaching moment, reaction to a situation where you said, wow, Roddy, he has a real ability, to be a head coach?
Yeah, I think, Dean Lombardi taught me this. He said, the less you can see me, the better. That means that my message is getting delivered through the team. And, Roddy's kind of the same way, right? The less you hear from me, the better. That means that the room is governing itself and you guys are doing it yourselves. And Roddy's kind of gotten to that now, that the culture here, and with obviously Jordan and the other leaders running the team right now, that his message is already conveyed throughout the team. So the best thing about Roddy is he leaves you alone when he needs to be left alone. He says the right thing when it needs to be said. And the fact that he's sat in our shoes and know what we're feeling and kind of just pulls the right strings all the time, whether it be having a video session after you screwed up and had a crappy game the night before. Instead of being, just kicking you when you're down, I'm going to show something else. And he just has such a great feel for the room, the players, what's needed. I think that's what makes him awesome. I think he, to answer your question, I can't pick one thing. It's just all of them together that really make him such a special coach.
That's better than one thing, infinitely better. Do you, thinking about that car right now, I feel like I'm in the back seat with you when you got cut from, the Bantam minor team. And you said, you wiped away the tears and said, heck, yeah, I want to keep playing. Have you, since you retired, Willie, have you had any moments privately where you miss it to the point? Do you ever cry? Have you had any moments where, tearful moments where, even with all that you accomplished and you left it all out there, that you have had that type of emotion?
I felt, you think about retirement and you think about when it's all going to end years before it actually happens. So this isn't something that I just woke up one day and I was like, you know what, that's my last game. That's it. It was something that went over years, years upon years. It started it started for me when I was 30 and I had some injury issues. I was like, is it going to end soon? Maybe it's going to end now. I don't know. And you think about it and you slowly think about it. But you just keep plowing forward. And as I said, living life and putting your best foot forward. Last year was a unique one for me. And I think maybe what you're alluding to in the fact that I came and watched some games when the season started in October, and I came and watched a couple games in November, and that's when I really got the itch. I was like, you know what, I think I might still be able to do this. A full season, maybe not, but maybe I can work my tail off, get myself in a good enough shape where I can help this team, and maybe have one more crack at it. And fortunately for me, Carolina was on board with it for me, and I was able to give it a go. But right now, I'm comfortable with where I'm at. I'm comfortable with my decision. I'm enjoying being where I am.
Yeah, and I'm pumped up about your new role because, again, I look around this tremendous basement, and the Hurricanes crest. The Hurricanes crest is in great stead, beyond great stead with a bar over it when you have guys like you Rod, I mean, this culture, this is a flat-out good team. I want to ask about Jordan Stahl, because when we dug in before, boy, you had some tremendous things about the captain he's become. He's playing really stellar hockey right now. But coming from you, I thought that was tremendous stuff. Why has he become a really, really fine captain?
I think he's become more comfortable with who he is. I think he's become more comfortable being looked upon as a leader. I think he's become more comfortable in the fact that people look to him for advice, and sometimes it takes a little bit more time. I knew he was years before, but now he's kind of owned it, and he's become a little bit more vocal as well. And he's conveying Rod's message. He's the perfect guy to keep conveying that message throughout the locker room. Work your tail off. Roddy's thing is the big C's, right? The 5 C's that go around the dressing room, and Jordan checks every box. So, he's not as vocal as I was, and I guess kind of as emotional as I was at times. But his message gets across just as good.
Boy, it just, as a long-standing Hurricanes guy, it just excites me so much that you've chosen to make this decision. But with youth hockey, and watching, it was so cool before Christmas. Jade, your daughter, playing with Brooks Brindamore. She makes a heady defensive play, leads to, so again, you have Williams to Brindamore for a goal that went viral. The NHL put it up on their social media. How would you assess, what excites you most about boys and girls hockey in the Carolinas and the future?
What excites me about it is the rate that it's growing, right? Obviously, the Hurricanes have even made a bigger financial commitment to the girls' side of it, making an over $200,000 commitment to youth girls in the area. That's huge, making that step, because I think that's a big space that we can draw from, and the more people that play hockey, the more it puts a smile on my face. So watching kids play at 9 years old is so refreshing. They're all out there having the time of their lives. They're not worried about anything. They're just having fun. And it's very refreshing. Obviously, watching my son Jackson and my daughter Jade love the game like I do is awesome. If they didn't love it, that's fine too. But it gives you a little bit extra, knowing the fact that they're enjoying what I love to do. So that's a fun part. And obviously the coaching staff that my daughter has with, I get there as much as I can, and Roddy gets there as much as he can. It's a pretty good little coaching staff, and Colin Muldoon is there as well. So the kids are very lucky.
Speaking of that staff, I have to give you a chance to respond. Rod told me today. I said, give me a scout. I've been watching the games on film. Mm-hmm. But Roddy said today, I said, I like this Jade Williams. And he goes, yeah, he said she's really smart, and she's much more coachable than her father. How do you respond to that? You today, listen, I've got to allow you to respond to that. Strong words from Brindamore.
I don't think they're out of line. I think they're completely accurate. Every time I'm out there, I see her. She's paying attention to the coach. I don't know. There's some kids that are off, looking at the stars or anything else. But Jade's intent on the coach and always says yes, and that's a good thing. So I would say she is much more coachable than me. I was a little bit more of a wild card. But the love of the game is there for her, that's for sure.
Well, I think that RB might be a little jaded. No pun intended. We're going to take a quick break and bring back a very, very special guest to conclude this episode.
Okay, can't wait.
Well, I try not to play favorites, but I feel like digging in is overachieving with our longstanding correspondent, Jax Williams. Jax, good to see my correspondent. How are you, baby?
I'm pretty good.
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, the best thing I can do is stay out of my correspondence way. The mic is yours. Questions for your dad?
Yeah. Number one, who do you think I resemble as a hockey player?
Who do I think you resemble as a hockey player? That's an interesting question. I feel like I should have been prepped for this question. But you know what you remind me of? You remind me of a little Kopi, little Kopitar. You're smart with the puck, very, very, very responsible defensively. Sometimes a little too much, and usually don't say that about a kid, but he's always looking on the defensive side of the puck, and you seem to make players better around you. So I would say Kopi.
And another one, how did the casino go in Ohio?
Oh, yeah, you guys, because you just did have a tournament up in Cleveland.
Oh, yeah, I set foot in that casino, not for very long, because they just rinsed me out of all my money. So that's why we had to eat at McDonald's that night instead of the steakhouse.
Jax, what kind of coach is he?
Sometimes he can get a little strict sometimes, but normally he's kind of chill back there.
I'm going to give the mic back to you for a few more questions in a second, but what's the part of your dad as a dad that you're most proud of and allows you to call him the best dad on the planet?
I don't know. His ability changed from being a coach and then being a dad.
When he'd come home, you were young in LA, but here in Carolina, towards the end of his career, do you guys talk about his games?
Yeah,
Bounce off? You did?
Every game.
Well, what do you remember, one particular moment where you gave him great advice?
Well, I always used to tell him to shoot it more.
That he did. And he was always, and he still is, a big 5-hole guy. He loves to shoot 5-hole. So I'm not going to give him all the credit, but when I did go in a shootout, I never ever thought about shooting 5-hole before. But Jax kind of gave me the inspiration to say, you know what? 5-hole is a great shot on a goalie in a shootout.
Timeout. Jax, my elite correspondent. Did you go low block or did you go 5-hole on Grice on that shootout goal I'll never forget?
Me?
No.
He went 5-hole.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Do you deserve the credit for that is what I'm asking.
If not all, that he deserves quite a bit of it. Absolutely. Absolutely.
What else, Jax?
About, not much more. I don't have any more questions.
Why do you think that you've been able to rock the Digging In pink hoodie to the degree you have?
One of the good things with Jax is I love the attitude that is, I don't care what anybody thinks. And I think he gets that from his mother. But I like that attitude. He wears what he wants. He acts, like a good kid. He better act as a good kid. But he does this. He's himself. He's Jax. So I enjoy that.
Jax, do you ever thank your mom and your dad for the fact that your name is spelled with an X? Because that, truthfully, it's a big time multiplier of mojo.
I mean, I'd never thanked them, but I'd like X instead of CK.
You'll be thanking him in the years to come. Let me tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Too long of a name.
Best moment you ever had in any and tell us a story in an NHL locker room with your dad. I like to ask the good question.
I don't know. Well, in LA, I used to play knee hockey with a couple of my friends in the locker room.
They used to come in after every game and just own the locker room and play mini hockey. But what about you have a picture of me and you after one Stanley Cup and we were doing interviews together? Is that upstairs?
That's not the locker room, though.
No, that's not.
That's correct.
That is not. You're right.
Yeah. Digging in, we're facts-based,
Yes,
JW.
we are.
That's why this guy is my absolute Emmy-winning correspondent.
Trip never ends.
No, I don't. Because every warm-up, I would have liked to have just interviewed your dad. Because he had the ability, one of the great competitors, the greatest competitors in the history of the sport. But in warm-up, you could talk to, if I said, Willie, I got to talk to you for all 15 minutes of warm-up on Fox, I think he'd do it. I think the only thing that really he had to do in warm-up, please fact check me if I'm wrong, was you had to look at the goaltender, whoever was playing for maybe 30 seconds, and get it in your head what you were going to do. Other than that, warm-up, you were just getting through it.
Yeah, I think, could you probably know exactly everything I would do for my warm-up when I was out there?
Yeah,
From the
most
start.
of it.
Yeah. So when I came out, I have the same routine, right? But I did love to watch. It was just something that I just loved to watch the starting goalie, warm up. And maybe I could pick out something small that maybe I could expose, or how he was holding his glove, or if he went down at all. It's tough to really judge in warm up. They're just trying to get warm as well. But any information, as I said, is good information. And the more I could look at it, the more I could maybe gain an advantage.
Jax, you're different because you have warm up and then you don't have a Zamboni flood before the game. But Willie, when would that switch go from off to on, that you would be the relaxed guy that I could even talk to you in warm up of Game 7 against Washington to, okay, now my fiery competitor? Is it as soon as you went back into the locker room after warm up?
I would say probably around the 10-minute mark, I would think. When that clock hits about 10 minutes, 8 minutes, something like that, and I'm stretching a little bit, I would say right around there. It's all right, it's game mode, game time to go. So, listen, you can't take yourself too seriously too much all the time, right? You need to enjoy what you're doing, enjoy being there, and enjoy being at the rink. I think Jax will agree with me that it's a fun place to be.
Jax, thanks, partner. You know what I would love down the road? You and I doing a bench interview as a Carolina Hurricane. Wouldn't that be something?
Yeah.
That would be something. Did I ever tell you the story? I know we're going to wrap this bad boy, but, your dad, because I try not to play favorites, but he was always and is one of mine. So the Kings come back, and I'm between the benches doing the game, and I said, Justin, it was his first trip back. We never should have traded him. All right. And I said, can you hang on? We'll do an interview after the first period. And he said, yeah, okay. So he's in his Kings jersey, and I put my arm around him and told him how much I loved him. He doesn't like it when you blow smoke. I get that. But I think it's a good interview. After the game, I get this text from Scotty Bowman saying, you never hug an opposing player. And it was stern. And I said, Justin Williams, you do. Boys, thank you. We'll talk to you soon.
All right. Thanks, Tripp.
That was terrific, JW. Well, I knew it would be. 2-time dig-in guest. What a man cave, huh? Wow. Well, when you put that much humbly, team first, clutch performer in the trophy case, of course it's going to be a nice man cave. Thank you again to the Williams family for hosting us. It was a hoot. So excited for all Hurricanes fans, and my perspective and privilege having been, starting when I signed with Hartford, been in the organization for 25 years. 25 years. It is a very, very significant moment when Justin chooses to start his post-playing career with the Carolina Hurricanes. That episode epitomized the shovel. Need I say more? Please rate and review it on all audio platforms and YouTube as well. Hope you checked it out on YouTube because you can really sense Williams' elite, uncomparable. Is it uncomparable? Incomparable. Must have skipped that class at Harvard. Competitive fire. It's uncomparable and it's incomparable. That was fun. Thank you to the New Country Auto Group, our long-standing, loyal presenting sponsor. Dealerships in New York, Connecticut, Maryland, Pennsylvania, right on down in the South in Florida. Ferrari, well, what a dealership. They just opened in Naples, Florida. Best Ferrari dealership in North America, bar none. Mercedes, Lexus, BMW, smart cars. They have everything. They check every box. Family owned, family run, service oriented in every part of the car buying process, service. They are simply stellar. Newcountry.com. DigginTrip.com, our ever-expanding merchandise line. It just keeps, in my view, getting better and better and better. I have bias, but my gosh, this hoodie, this zip hoodie, is beyond comfortable. It was so comfortable that Justin Williams, his three dogs, couldn't get enough of it. So that's about as good of an endorsement as you could ever ask for. Until the next time, look in the mirror. Are you digging in like Justin always did? Digging in when it matters most? If you are, keep doing it. If you're not, never too late to start. Stay safe, stay healthy during these unprecedented times. We hopefully can start to see some light at the end of the tunnel. And I'll see you soon, next week, for another episode of Digging In. Please keep your shovels in hand.
We're digging in with Tripp today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today, yeah. Today.